Hey, I'm Hayden from Piano Groove, and in this lesson we are going to learn how to read lead sheets for beginners. Simply put, if you want to play jazz piano, you have to know how to read lead sheets. We're going to use the jazz standard Moon River, and this video will be split into 4 chapters. For the first chapter, we're going to start with the most basic chord voicings, so even if you've never played from a lead sheet before, you will be able to follow along. So let me start with a demonstration, and then we will jump into the first chapter. I'm going to explain the layout and the format of the lead sheet and how we can interpret the melody and the harmony. So if you're new to jazz piano, it's very, very important that you understand how to read lead sheets because this is how music is typically notated in jazz. If you come from a classical background, you will be familiar with reading 2 staffs, so where we have a staff for our right hand and a staff for our left hand. However, when we play jazz piano and when we are dealing with lead sheets, they generally only have the treble clef, as you can see on the screen. So what you can see here is the first 8 bars of the tune Moon River. You'll see that we have the melody line, we also have the chords, which are written above the staff. When we're playing from lead sheets, all we see is the chord symbol. The reason is that this gives us more creative freedom to choose interesting voicings and to create a more personalized and jazzy sounding arrangement. And this will become clearer as we progress through this course. So I recommend to first isolate the triads. In the first bar, we have C major, the second bar, A minor, the third bar, F major, the fourth bar, C major, back to F major in bar 5, back to C major in bar 6, a B diminished triad in bar 7, and then an E major triad in bar 8. So just play through this to familiarize yourself with the shapes. Now we could play this tune just using triads in our left hand. Whilst it wouldn't sound particularly jazzy, it sounds okay. So let's do that. Let's add the melody in our right hand and the triads in our left hand. And that would take us to A minor. So that's in bar 9. Now that's really the most basic way that we could play a lead sheet. However, in jazz music, as a minimum, we use 7th chords. The reason we use 7th chords is it just creates a richer sound, and it also allows us to play 3-note spread voicings. So let's go through these same 8 bars, and this time we will play 7th chords in our left hand. So we have a C major 7, so root 3, 5, and 7, go into A minor 7, root 3, 5, and 7, again it's just the triad with the 7th note, F major 7, back to C major 7, back to F major 7, back to C major 7, the B minor 7 flat 5, you can hear now we have a bit more tension, going to the E7, and going into bar 9, that would take us to an A minor. So now we can play this again with the 7th chords, and let's see how this sounds. So notice here that the melody note is actually the 7 of the chord, and this is going to lead us nicely onto the topic of spread voicings. So whilst this sounds okay, there's still something missing. This is a very important concept that I'm going to explain now. This is really the foundation for playing from lead sheets, and the concept is 3-note spread voicings. This can also be referred to as the 3-hand approach, or it can be referred to as a root melody and then the chord tones in between. So let me show you how this works. So the first chord is C major 7. Here's our major 7th chord. The most important tones here are the 3 and 7. So here's the chord with the 5th, and if we take that 5th out, notice the quality of the chord doesn't change. So for example here, it does sound a little bit thicker because the 5th just adds weight, but it's the 3rd and 7th that defines if it's major, dominant, or minor. So these 2 tones are the most important. So the first thing we do is we play the melody in our right hand. Here I'm playing the melody note, which is G. Another important point is always to analyze what this melody note is in relation to the underlying chord. The underlying chord is C major 7, and so we're actually playing the 5th. So again, it means that we can take that note out of our left hand. And so the first thing to do is to play the root and the melody. So these 2 notes are important. This creates the bass or the foundation, and also the melody note. And then we have to play the 3rd and 7th of the chord somewhere in between. So we know the 3rd and 7th, the 3rd is E, and the 7th is B. So if we look at these notes in between, we can see that we have an E here, we have a B here, we also have an E here. So that gives us 2 options, when we have the chord in this configuration. One option would be this, the other option would be this. And there isn't a huge difference between the 2, but that's the only 2 options for a 3-note spread voicing for this chord. We could also double the 3 here, but generally when we double notes and create redundancy, i.e. we're doubling a note here, it doesn't add anything to the harmony. And as we will look in the later lessons, we can play things like this or this to create richer sounds. This is a bit more advanced, but just to explain generally why we don't double notes. Just to recap, we play the root, the melody, and then we need to look in between and we need to find the 3rd and the 7th. So I'm going to go for this one. I like this configuration. Let's move on to the next chord now. So now we're going to move to A minor. First, let's play the melody notes, and then let's play the root of the chord, and then the 3rd and the 7th would be these 2 notes. The 3rd could also be up here. And notice that creates a very close interval with the melody. And so when we're creating spread voicings, particularly when starting out, our goal should be to create an even spread. And so I'd recommend this configuration. So starting at the top, C major to A minor. Now moving down to the F major 7. There's our melody, there's our root, and then we need to put the 3 and 7 in between. Again, here's the 3, here's the 7. There's also a 3 here, but again, that's going to create dissonance because it's very close to the melody, so I'm going to go for this configuration. Moving back to C major, we already covered this. That's the voicing I'd choose. We could put the 5th in there as well. Creates a bigger sound, but for now, it's important to clearly visualize the 3 and 7s. So, as you will maybe see so far, there's no set in stone formula for this. It depends what's in the melody, and it depends in what register we're playing. So a common question I receive from students is, what's the formula for spread voicings? And the reality is that there is no magic formula. It depends on a lot of things. And the best way, the most effective way that you're going to learn how to do this is simply from playing lots of jazz standards. And then these options, they become almost subconscious. Our hands will just gravitate towards the voicings, which takes a little time, but this is the point that you will get to in the near future. So back to the top, we have C major. I am putting the pedal down here, so I put the pedal down, and then when I move to A minor, I lift the pedal up just before I change chord. Then moving to the F major. Notice there I did roll the notes, so we don't have to play everything sequentially, or we don't have to play everything in unison like this, so we can play... And this is why it can be nice to add the fifth, because it just gives you a little bit more movement. So perhaps start like this, but remember that we can also toggle the notes, and we're going to look at this in the next lessons. So C major to A minor. Again, the fingering here, you know, it depends what's coming next. So here I might play the root with my second finger, and then that will allow me to move down to here. Back to F major, back to the same voicing. Back to the same voicing for C major. Now we have a new chord. So the melody notes, the roots, and it's very important, as I mentioned, we should always analyze what this melody note is in relation to the underlying chord. Because if we think of the chord, here's our B minor 7 flat 5, the melody note is the 3. So that means that all we need to add in between is the 7, and there's our voicing. So this is a 2-5. So we have a B minor 7 flat 5 going to E7. And if you've studied the lessons in the Foundations course, you'll know that whenever we have a 2-5, the 7 drops by a half step to become the third of the 5 chord. So look how smoothly those lead together. And that would take us down to A minor in bar 9. We're now going to delve into a little bit of extended chord theory, so I'll show you some extended chord voicings. And I'm also going to show you some ways that we can move the left hand into a lower register and add some additional movements down here. So starting with the first chord, here's our basic voicing, and we talked about, you know, adding the 5th down here and rocking between the notes. One thing we can do is take this triad, and if we play that down here, and then move the 3 up here. So this is quite a big reach, but you should be able to rock like this. If you can reach it all together, then that's also great. But remember, you can always do this kind of movement. And in fact, this creates a nice vibe. So then we can play, again, the 7, 3, and 5 in our right hand, but now this movement. And if you can keep your hand in the same position, then that's a good way to do it. But if you have smaller hands, you can also rock like this. But listen to the difference between this and this. You know, our chord now has a much stronger foundation. We could also add the 9th. So if we think of C major 7, the second note, if we put that up here, that creates a C major 9. So C major 7, C major 9. And listen to the additional richness that adds to the chord. We cover this in our course on extended chord voicings, and even if you're new to jazz piano and this doesn't make sense, all you need to do right now is think that the 9 is the same note as the 2, but an octave higher. And so if we put that into our chord voicing here, we now have this nice rub between these notes, which creates a much richer sonority, which is very nice. And then previously we voiced our A minor chord like this. So one thing we can do is play the 3, 7 and the melody just with our right hand, and then play the root down here, or the root and 5. So now we have... And listen to the difference between this and now with the bigger voicings. We could even stack that chord out a little more, and we could play the root 5 and 9. So here's a minor triad. But now I'm playing it like this. So this is one of the common minor voicings that we play in the extended voicings chord. It can be called the Kenny Barron voicing. So we have the root, a 5th interval, another 5th interval, a half step or a minor seconds, and then another 5th and another 5th. So now we have... Let's now move on. So previously we looked at this voicing for F major 7. So an interesting thing here is that this is the sharp 11 of the F major chord. If you think of the F major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And that's the sharp 11, which creates an interesting sound. What we can do is play a G major triad and an F major triad. So my left hand plays F major, my right hand plays G major, and then we invert this down to here, and we can play, instead of an F major triad like this, we can play it like this. And listen to the texture this chord has. So from the top, and now, really beautiful voicing. Another option for the second bar, instead of this bigger voicing, we could play... So here I'm playing a minor 11th voicing for A minor, root, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. And we cover these voicings in our extended voicings course, so if you want to check out the theory, then check out that lesson. And again, I'm going back to that C major. Notice when I played the F major that I added this extra melodic decoration. Again, back to the same voicing. And then let's go to the B minor 7 flat 5 here, and now we can play, here I'm playing the root 7 and 3, or we could play the 5 there, or even this configuration. So now instead of just playing, we're playing this. If you want to add a bit more color, add the 7 down here and play the note C. And that creates a bit of dissonance. We talk about this in our course on chord alteration, so it's a bit more advanced, but something to play around with. So let's go from the top. Moving on now, the B section. So for the A minor 7, again, notice I can rock my... So I hope you have enjoyed this short introduction to reading lead sheets for jazz piano. Remember to download the PDF worksheet. You can find this in the video description, and this contains all of the notation for everything we've covered today. So thank you for tuning in. If you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.